just talking about this a little bit, I'd like to get other people's input, but also I'd like to start it off by giving some of mine as to why we're interested in this kind of stuff. And it's not so we can go out and buy somebody's system. It's because there are a lot of ideas there that really import or have import, as Prakash was illustrating, on our own work, on our own simulations, or even on products we buy for those of you who use canned products. More particularly, I'd like to focus a little bit on the on how you would start, because this is something I've faced and a couple of us have faced, getting started developing machine learning apps. Is there space for us to do something on our own? And what should we look at? And one of the things I'm pointing, first of all, let me just say, here are 3 great videos that I'd really suggest you look at if you want to see ML in action for investing. So please take a look at those. If you want to be convinced that there's relevance here for investing, we don't have to understand, we don't have to all be programmers or developers, but it'll really help us understand the relative role of AI and of machine learning in this field that we're in. I have to mention, before I get into a little bit of detail, here are some of the main frameworks that you might use. Let's say you're a software developer and you want to get down to some basic software that's commonly used for, let's say it's commonly used for developing financial machine learning applications. Here are some of the packages. Now, are those really the right place to start with? And if they are, should use them exclusively or not? And the answer is they're not adequate, at least according to people I've seen try things. Let me just see. They have not been sufficient use. Let's say you start trying to run a neural network to predict tomorrow's S&P close or something like that. It's not going to work. It's about that simple. You have to have some sort of edge, some sort of approach that's keyed. Ryan, could you check some of the mics and turn off some of the ones? I would appreciate it, that are not from people who are talking. So what you need is something that's more tailored already. Now, one way is to go out and buy somebody else to manage it for you, as maybe you can using the kind of product that our speaker spoke about tonight. But assuming you want to do some developing of your own, can we look at something that's more accessible than something that's closed to somebody else's technology? Well, the most respected book on financial machine learning, I will assert tonight, is this book by DePrato. I already gave you a link to a couple of his videos, Advances in Financial Machine Learning. And that, however, is quite dense mathematically and programming wise. But nonetheless, there are some, I'll come back to that. Let me talk about some more accessible books. If you want a good toolkit book, there's this one. This is scikit-learn, which is one of the major platforms that a lot of developers use for developing ML platforms. So this is back in the general category. It's not specific to investing, but you can take a look at that book if you want a toolkit type guide to doing developing. If, on the other hand, you want a book on deep learning, and let's come back again, it was discussed in the presentation, is deep learning something that's even applicable to us at all? But we need to understand it at the very least. It's just huge across all forms of programming, software development, including investing. Here's one really nice book by François Chollet, Deep Learning. And now, let's say you do want to look at some specific code. There's some in DePrato's book that you should be able to use. That would be a good starting point, I think. Here's a place that sells their own adaptation of it. You could get by with what's in the book, but if you want some more, or even more discussion of it, there's this site called Hudson and Thames in England, and they go over some of the themes of the Prado's book. Now, there was a free version of that library, and some may be able to still access it. I haven't looked into whether it's approved or not to find an old version and use it, but obviously a lot of people are doing that. It's hard, but it's big dollars if you want to buy it. But it does things like volume-based bars, meta labeling, feature engineering, cross-validation. They have code for those elements, which, as you heard in tonight's talk, are really key elements of financial machine learning. And if you want a disciple of de Prado, or somebody who's imitating him, or not imitating, but flattering him by following his path, Ernest Chan spoke to us earlier, predictnow.ai. And for deep learning, some of those things were mentioned briefly. I'm not going to go into them in any depth. Convolutional neural networks is a form of vision processing, or technology developed for vision that turns out you can apply to investing. But again, we're talking about only the case where you have very, very dense intraday data. For the type of system most of us, but not all, most of us are trading, which is a day-to-day system where you're entering one day, exiting the next, or even with a 1 or 2 hour time horizon. You don't need a deep learning network at all. I mean, that point was made tonight. So it's going to be a bit of a disappointment to you if you spent a year researching deep learning, because you'll find out it isn't all that relevant to at least the simple systems we do. Now, it is relevant if you get down to very micro oriented trading, reinforcement learning, long short-term memory, and we also have some other approaches too. But that's just the categorization, the classification type approach that was talked about tonight is the most obvious one to take. There are a couple of courses online that I found good. Here they are. Email me for the slides, or I'll post them. And I'll post them. But email me if you need to. And those are just a few points that I had to make. So to try and start a conversation. So who would have some comments either on the talk tonight or on the issue of how to get started if you want to do some developing of your own, or have some anecdotes of their own, how they approach the task? Do they agree? Do you agree that deep learning is not immediately relevant for most of us, or do you think deep learning is? And neural networks, are they immediately relevant or are they not? Has anyone tried? Any comments? Might as well open your mic if you would. Well, let me put it this way. What are some questions people have? And we'll just have people try and answer them.
I just have one general comment. This has been a desire of mine kind of on the back burner. And my plan of attack is to go through a kind of a Python tutorial, and then maybe learn some about the, what are the notebooks
PyTorch.
called? Yeah. And I have a couple of those books that you mentioned, and I have several others. So my goal was to walk through a couple of the books, but yes, it starts to get super convoluted when you get into TensorFlow and some of the other things.
And yeah, how far did you get?
Like I said, it's on the back burner. I'm still
Okay.
trying to find time to get into Python because I don't use it at work. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, if you look at, you mentioned, I mean, those books are ones that have a lot of, the whole field is Python oriented for no good reason, as far as I'm concerned. But
well, I think it's only because of the libraries.
yeah, 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 yeah. Once they're in Python, then you have to sort of, it's highly desirable that you code Python. Um, which type of trading system would you be interested in looking at simulating or testing?
My initial thought was to look into trying to predict future values. And again, this is where I start to get lost, and
Mhm.
that is how many data points can you feed in
Yeah.
before you start to uh, overweight the model or whatever, so it has no chance of succeeding.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that right away because I've thought about these issues too a lot. And that's that if you ask it to predict a future price naked in that naked form, and that was an extremely demanding task. And what I would do, what I'm thinking of doing myself is instead guide something like let's say, a traditional broken wing butterfly method and try and predict whether it will make money or not in a given volatility environment, this kind of thing, where you can turn it into something that is a lot easier and all that you need. In other words, if you ask it to actually predict future prices, that's way more than you need. So you're taxing it with a load, with a task that's that is essentially impossible, which is okay, because we'll do the best we can. We'll ask this, but um, much the odds of success should be the highest if we can give it a task that has some degree of achievability. So I would be looking at something like, well, should I be in and out of the market? Let's say you have that decision to make. You're trying to predict that. Should I be selling volatility or not? If you could come up with a prediction of the right times to be in and the right times to be out, that is something that it might have a chance of predicting. Just a thought.
Yeah, and one of the ideas I've been thinking about is, say you put in a dozen different data points for currencies,
Mhm,
say the major pairs,
mhm,
and then you try to predict, say, where's the dollar going to be based upon those other data points. And
mhm,
I would think that would be semi-doable. I mean, you might not be able to get an exact value. Maybe you can get a range,
mhm.
or to your point, long, short, or on the
Yeah,
sidelines.
exactly. And there's also this whole thing about meta labeling, which he goes into in his book, De Prado, which means you take an already existing system that works fairly well and you improve it by machine learning. That's where people have had the greatest success. They really haven't had success trying to get it to nakedly predict up or down, that kind of thing. And that hasn't worked at all, by and large, with the exception of some people who are probably lying. There's lots of them. And I mean, the field is ripe with fraud. And and so, but I think that the whole meta labeling thing, people need to look into it. It's a very strange term at first. Labeling means identifying states that you can classify, I think, or configurations or indicators. Whereas meta labeling is applying another set of labels on top of those that you derive from machine learning, something vaguely along these lines. Would anyone care to phrase it better? Has anyone used labeling, meta labeling?
Hey, Don.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, no, I have not used meta labeling. I think I have actually another question for you is, in this deep learning or meta labeling or in this exercise, somebody has to develop a system like that. How much commitment is needed from the time wise, just rough estimate, you think? And what would be the, if somebody wants to do it in 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, what should be the simplest task that you should look for in the phase 1?
Well, I mean, I think that the Prado route is the way that I would go, because I mean, he's a hugely successful advisor. He's to billion-dollar funds. He says the market can be predicted, and he's published code. And unfortunately, it's sort of hidden behind this wall of proprietary stuff with the Hudson and Thames people. I would look at some of their stuff. You can also look at Chan, what's his first name? I can't think of it right now. Who has
Ernie Chan, right?
Yeah. Chan, who has a firm, and you can sign up and get a demo of that. And he'll give you a complete money-making configuration that uses a whole bunch of DePrado techniques. So, I mean, so you can subscribe to his service and then duplicate it.
Hey, Don.
Yes.
So a group of guys, one of their names is Jacques Joubert. They coded all the open source. They've created an open source implementation of the DePrado, and they have it on Quant Connect. I'm going to post a link. I'm going to post a link. It's also available on the PyPy index. I tried it out a year or so back, but I didn't gain much traction because I didn't have the time. So I'll post the link and you can add it to your resources. I just did.
Oh, thank you very much. But I'm wondering if is that not the same thing? Maybe no.
They've coded it different. I mean, they've done it outside of what's the name of that Thames company, the publisher.
Quant Connect.
Yeah, so Quant Connect is just it's a free account you can get. But use this link. I'm not connected. I'm not representing any of these guys. I just tried out ML FinLab maybe a year back.
I think that's the same one, Prakash. It's ML FinLab. That's the name of the Hudson and Thames. Okay, but that's great if that's available to people.
It's free. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Don, this is Conrad.
I know. I'm sorry, Conrad.
So just go to PyPy index. You can do a pip install of ML FinLab, and that way you're not coding everything in Python from scratch. It's already been done.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. I would suggest, so Prakash, I would suggest that route personally as a viable route. I mean, it's the same thing, Conrad, as what I was talking about. I found a version of it also elsewhere. That's before they upgraded it. Since then, Hudson and Thames have upgraded that package, and they're charging an arm and a leg for it now, and they've taken down almost everybody's copies of, I think, what you have there. But it looks like that's a surviving copy, and that's great news. Indeed, I think we should maybe do some projects around it.
Yep. And I mean, if anyone is already started using it, post, feedback on the meetup link or any other forum.
Yeah.
I was going to revisit it sometime this year, but if
I started
yeah.
with it. It's the same thing. And I started some of that stuff. I mean, some of the stuff to look at that the Prado particularly advocates is the changing from fixed time bars to volume clocked time bars. So bars. In other words, you go by, the first 100,000 shares or whatever, and then the next 100,000 shares, which might be a varying time bar. So that's one of the methods that's in that collection of methods from his book. And there's a whole bunch of other things he does similarly.
Okay, I'll try out some of them.
It's a huge configuration challenge, I will tell you that, because it's all in Python, and like it has dependencies on about 30 different Python packages, and moreover they're all at back levels. That's old code, and so they're all like age-old packages, some of which have been discontinued, and so it's a nightmare to configure it. But if you restrict your aim at first to just a couple of the packages in it. Does anyone have another path? So that's one path. Does anyone have another path into getting started into ML?
John, this is Mike Rulison.
Oh, hi, Mike.
I'd like to say that I've been dabbling around in the R language.
Mm-hmm.
There are myriads of packages, and there's a set of them that relate to financial analysis. I don't know how much they go into machine learning, but they're all available. They're open. You can download them. You can inspect them. You can play with them.
Absolutely. And I'm very heavily into R, and I prefer it to Python. But you sort of have, as someone has pointed out, all the packages are in the huge majority of the packages are in Python, but R has sort of layers or adaptations that allow you to call them from R. So that's definitely an option also. Is anyone else doing research in financial machine learning or any machine learning? Or are they in touch with it? Are they following it?
I've been following it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've been trying to learn it quite a bit, and I've been using Python for probably 6 years, and it is actually a fairly easy language to learn. And there's a thing out there called GitHub.
Yep.
And there's a lot of free code that you can just go out and just grab stuff. And once you get the hang of Python, it's easy to just pull stuff into like these notebooks. They call them Jupyter Lab notebooks or Colab, which is under Google. But there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And you can just go out and just Google and anything that's in GitHub related to investments. There's a ton of stuff out there.
Yeah, there is, and a lot of it is not really productive, to be honest. It's not really credible to me. I would say 90%, I mean, I could be wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I would say only 5% of it has any credibility. And among the stuff that does have credibility is that ML FinLab stuff that we have a link for there. So really, I wonder if we could do some sort of project with that. I'm going to get back into that myself. And Conrad is also looking at that. Maybe you want to look at some of that, John, too. That link is very valuable.
I guess the main thing with what I was trying to bring that up for is it will help you get to where you can learn how people have done it before, and then you can kind of do your own models. So like if you know, there may be some other, say like a Bollinger Bands and things like that. You can make your own models up around some of the things other people have done.
So Prakash, what did you think of the talk? Did you, I mean, how did you, what did you think of his answers?
I was actually absent for last 2 minutes. I just went to restroom. So you're asking me about the presentation or
The presentation.
The presentation was excellent. These guys are doing something really, really good and deep. I think they said 30 developers they have. I think that was right.
That's enormous, yeah.
That's enormous. I am still trying to understand what services they exactly offer. So they said they do not offer the signal services. They do not take retail investors. So I'm thinking either they are managing funds themselves. I haven't visited their website yet.
Yeah.
Probably I'm gonna contact them on LinkedIn to Erase and Taylor, right? So
yes, Erase at he should be there. I've looked at a number of their webinars, and what they're selling to a lot of specialized clients, but different categories. But one category they sell to is specialized data providers, what's now called alternative data. In other words, a lot of investors are now trading, paying huge amounts of money to specialized alternative data providers who do things like satellite images of China or something, so that people can gauge the industrial activity, to try and predict the future of the market and that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of these specialized alternative data providers, so they're selling services to them and other people who want to develop specialized trading systems. I mean, it seems to me the basic question is whether what they're doing is really successful or not. I mean, I can't tell.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. And the other thing is the timeline, right? I mean, you can have different models, different stuff, because he mentioned that they do the futures, they do the stocks, they do indexes. So they do a lot of, they cover pretty much all the markets, and they must be running a different algorithm, different models on different markets. Also, they must be catering it to their clients. Like some may be low risk, some may be seeking high risk and high reward. So that kind of things. And so looks like this would be my guess is they are catering a solution to small, medium-sized private equity funds or hedge funds.
Exactly.
Who may not have the resources to have their own quant team.
I think that's exactly right. They originally had another name for their firm, which was Lucina or something like that. And they have Dr. Balch at Georgia Tech, was original co-founder. And they're into a lot of things. Anybody else want to add anything? Thank you very much, Prakash. Thank you, everybody who's contributed.
Yeah, it seems like in the presentation, one of the main points was you had to bring your strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that I've been trying to study it for almost 10 years now, in search of the so-called edge, and just when you think you have something, it falls apart. And I know that they'll help you refine something.
Exactly.
But you still have to come with that strategy.
Yeah, and that's called meta labeling by some people, namely adding the meta is this, we're adding another layer of labeling to the states and identifying them.
One quick question.
Sure.
You You were talking about different paths, and I was wondering if anyone had looked into the Quantopian path, where it seems like, once you sign up with an account there, they give you their training and, their tools to do your ML within their platform.
Has anyone used a Quantopian? They're not the one that went closed, are they? One of those firms closed down. I forget which one.
I might have, I don't know.
And one of the problems with some of those firms, I wouldn't, I myself am not attractive to developing my code on an online platform developed by somebody else. And they don't even allow you to export. There's all sorts of restrictions, but I'm sure maybe I'm being unfair, to them. I think we do have some people who played with those.
I
Okay,
did when it was free, but then they started charging at different price levels, and finally they shut down.
Yeah, I thought they shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's other like Quant Connect.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not actually trading, running algorithms against for live trading, you can do it locally with simulation.
Yeah, I see. Well, it sounds like you're really into this, Conrad, or started into it, and so let's see if we can come up with something.
Yeah, I put a PDF in the PDF link in the thing. It'll be a good overview. I mean, it's not too technical, but it just laying the foundations. And someone named MR said my link comes back with a black screen. Which link?
We'll post them on.
The link you published at 8:54 p.m.
8:54 p.m.
Machine learning methods in finance.
Oh, you mean the Quant Connect? No, it's working.
The next one.
Oh, the PDF. Yeah, it's a big PDF. It takes a little time to come down.
Both of your links worked for me, Conrad.
It worked for me. I just clicked it. It came back quickly.
Yeah, KIT.edu is a German company. I mean, German Institute for Technology. So they probably got us on a very slow FTP.
Okay,
it takes time.
Sorry, I haven't fully adapted to the fact that some links will download just upon being clicked, and some will tell you or ask you if you want to download it. So I'm getting confused between the two.
Just right click and save as PDF. I mean, if it takes some time, it will take some time, but it will come directly as a PDF on your downloads.
Yeah, I got it. They're down here.
All right, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we're about done. I don't want to keep people too late. Let's, let me grab, I think we'll be able to grab the links. I'll just, anybody else have any points? Anything else to add?
Good session, Don. And yeah, we'll keep trying out things. Very nice.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll stop the recording. If you want the recording, email me. I don't think we're going to make it available to everybody, only people who were on this meeting. And stop recording. I'll stop.